Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Dogging It. This is across all podcast platforms, Moscone Cup recap number 412 out of a potential 600, I think. I've been driving all day today, Melina, and I've been listening to people's podcasts, Cue It Up, and you and Pinozzo talking about the Moscone Cup. And brother, I know I probably stuck my foot in my mouth the other day, but
I got some things to say too. Your face is a little off still.
Is it?
Maybe if you can
Am
adjust.
I pixelated?
Yeah, you're super pixelated. Yeah.
All right, hold on. Let me refresh.
I don't know why. Let's let Joey refresh. See if he can come in with a better view. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. This is second shift, I guess, for today. It's been a lot of Moscone Cup opinions, a lot of Moscone Cup talk. We appreciate all you guys for hanging out with us. Let's see if Joe's coming back in. No video feed, he says. So that's gonna be a problem. But Joey is not one. Joey's been coming in like real hot lately. There you are, Joe. Perfect.
Is that better?
I mean, relatively speaking. Yeah. Yeah.
I never know when you're serious or not. If you're just like, oh, I'm still pixelated. But I am on hotel internet. I'm in Lafayette, Louisiana. And yeah, man. Like, to be honest with you, Mike, you and I haven't done a show together since day 3 recap from Moscone. And the truth of the matter is that there's like an emotional period of like letdown, after what happened with Team USA, that I just wasn't ready to talk about it. So I don't know. That's where I am. So I'm ready to talk about it now.
Well, where to begin? We saw you guys in the chat. We appreciate all y'all for hanging out. Jared, I don't know when we're gonna have WPA matchroom talk. I certainly won't be during the middle of Moscone Cup. I can tell you that, buddy. So as soon as it is, you'll be follow the pages and you'll be seeing it on there. No, look, I like your hot takes, buddy. At least I'm not the only one going off the deep end a little bit. So I'm not gonna argue that. Plus, I appreciate.
First of all,
yeah. No, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say. First of all,
go ahead.
I just want to address all the ridiculous chatter online about like we need to change the format, we need to do this, we need to make it more competitive, blah blah blah. I know Pinozzo said it today. I 100% agree that the Moscone Cup is the Moscone Cup. And you know what? If Europe snaps off 5, 6, 8 in a row, great. The U.S. needs to get the motivation, needs to change some things so that we come back and snap off a half a dozen or a dozen in a row. A lot of people forget the beginnings of the Moscone Cup and how dominant Team USA was. And now Europe has taken that over, right? And they've become the dominant ones. But this is a rivalry, and it's what it's all about, right? Sometimes the team that keeps getting beat has to figure out a way to get back in the winner circuit and get back in there, right? And that's where Team USA is right now. It's no question, even with the addition of Federgors, we're a big underdog going in. Less of an underdog this year, we thought. But then Europe rolled right along and beat us pretty handily. One of the most convincing Moscone Cup victories we've seen. But there's no reason to change the event. There's no reason to change the format or, find ways to make it more fair. You know what? U.S. is going to win one of these soon, and then they might put together a little run, and then we might be talking a Moscone Cup. That's my feelings.
Well, whenever you decide to wake up from La La Land, you let me know. We can talk. We can talk reality here, because the reality is it is lopsided. The reality is the Americans have gotten lapped, and I'm not saying for the sake of giving more of an advantage to the Americans as far as changing the format. The format, and we'll have a show all about it. We talked about that earlier, but like the format itself was just, there wasn't the same amount of players that got played, And so I would rather have seen more. I don't give a shit if the Americans lose 11-0. Let them lose to the team, though. Let the team go out there and win. Let the
Yes.
team go out there and lose. Not so much, have, two of their best guys go out there and smoke us like we know that they can, So just in that regard. But like I said, we're going to dive deeper into that with some guys who are a lot more smarter on that topic than I am. Hoping to get Carl on for that one, along with Pinozo. Seeing if we can also
Look,
get Darren Appleton as well.
like in the
Guys
chat
who
right
have
now.
like history with Moscone.
I get it, but look in the chat right now. Ryan Robinson says a rivalry means not two every 15 years. Laugh out loud. But if you think about it, do you remember when Michigan was dominant over Ohio State? It's like they couldn't win. Then all of a sudden, Ohio State becomes dominant over Michigan. Now Michigan's back, right? These
Harbaugh ain't won a
things
game
happen.
in fucking 10
And
years, man. Harbaugh ain't won a big game to save his life.
what do you mean?
I,
Hasn't
I,
Michigan won the last several years?
I mean, won what? Won what? They beat Ohio State.
Won
I
the
think this
Ohio
was like
State Michigan
their
game.
first year. I mean, but what else have they won?
No, I'm
You
just
know?
saying Texas, Oklahoma, right? For years, Texas dominated that rivalry. Then Oklahoma dominated the rivalry. Texas had a resurgence. You know what I mean? Like these things happen, and they happen in sports. Duke, North Carolina goes through the same thing, right? So all this talk about like this is not even a competition anymore. We need to bring things. Great. If Asia comes
No, no,
in,
no.
if
See,
you're
that's where it
separated,
gets
that's
lost in
fine.
translation. Like, I'm not saying for the sake of changing the Mosconi Cup or for the sake of bailing out the Americans. I'm saying it because I would enjoy that competition. Now, I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
how
me
any other fans. I don't know how any
too.
other fans feel about it, but I'm not coming from it for a place of, you know, doing SOS out here on the Americans. Look,
I think it's a lot of
send them out,
Europeans.
send them out there to the wolves and let them get smoked till they finally, you know, till they light a fire under their ass or change some things, And I get it. Like you're right.
Yeah, I think
Sometimes there can't be what.
I was just gonna say I think a lot of the Europeans, after the victory, a lot of the European fans are like, "Oh, bring on Asia. This isn't a match anymore." That kind of stuff, and that's silly because the U.S. I put it to you this way: the rosters where we won those 2 years, the roster this year. It's just they played better as a team, and I think Johan had a big influence over that. And you know what I mean? So it's a team event. We see it out here in
Yeah,
Phoenix
and
when we
that's
do
all
the
that I'm
East
saying
Side
as
versus
far as
the
the
West
format.
Side.
It's like I don't want to lose to fillers, 6 times and you lose to Jason another 5 more times.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
want to get my ass. If you're an American, you go out there and get your ass whooped by David and Fran. I mean, it's never going to be perfect because there's 5 players, but at least have the number of times that you're playing be even. There was a good chance you weren't going to get Wolford playing his singles, but you would have already gone through what would have been, I guess, at that point, 11 matches, while
Mhm.
others have played singles more than one time. That's all that I'm saying, and
No, I
that's what
agree.
I want to really, that's more what we're going to get into over the next few days. I mean, look,
That's not what I was
I,
talking
I,
about, though. I wasn't
I
talking about
don't think, yeah,
you.
I don't think that, I do think that this team could go and put out a better showing. I do, I mean, look, it's hard to get worse. That's for sure. It's hard to get worse. And what whatever has to happen in order to make that happen, you got to really look at yourself in the mirror for that, and you got to be honest with yourself, and that's everybody, and you have to be honest with who are you arm in arm with as well, and no more of this given a pass because of this or no more preferential treatment. You got your ass whooped, and the whole world saw you. So who's ever taken responsibility for that, and really that's 6 guys. All 6 guys can take responsibility for it. You got to be honest as far as what you can do differently to help change what happened there.
Yeah. The last time we were on the show together, I think I made be and how you would ask me, like we were
Went
talking about
went
players
dead
that could
off.
join the team, and you asked me who would you replace, and I said SVB. And that's no
Right.
disrespect to him as a pool player because obviously he's the best pool player we've seen in the United States, maybe ever, of all time, worldwide. But the team component, the team aspect, just doesn't fit him. Although it's something that he's probably not going to deny an opportunity to play in it. He's not going to turn it down, right? Because it's a free 20 grand, potentially 40 grand. It's not the best. He's not the best fit for the team. And so a couple points about this as I was thinking about it, because I'm seeing a lot of criticism of Jeremy, and we can second guess a lot of things. I know we're gonna have him on the show, so make sure to stay tuned.
Well, a lot of guys out here don't know
that
that because we have not posted that information to be
Oh.
public. So we are going to get Jeremy Jones on this weekend. So make sure and keep your eyes open for that. You know, Jeremy, we got in contact earlier today. He's still abroad, but he's coming back home here in the next couple of days, and then we're going to link up and get him on the show. So probably somewhere around, Friday, Saturday, and we'll be posting that information just as soon as we got it. So,
Yeah. So my point is, with Shane, right? Who did I say I would put on the team? And you said in place of Shane. Who was it I was talking about? Do you remember? I don't even remember now.
I don't know. I don't remember now. Yeah.
But I guess my point was, if you had a different player that would create more of a team environment, that even if you take a hit on skill and ability, the teamwork side is going to, and the team's going to bond together and play better for each other. And so then
but what happens if you go get your what happens if you lose 11-3, but I'm closer with old boy? What difference does that make?
I don't know what you mean. I mean, it can't get any worse than it was this year, really. I mean, so, but here's what I was thinking, Mike. So after I said that, and listening to all the criticism online about JJ and about how he should have done this, why did he do that? Why did he put Federer out there? How come we didn't play our best Scotch doubles? All of these things, ask him about him, right? But I think one thing can't be overlooked, and that is that if I were creating an all-star team today of pool players, I would pick that all-star team. And Matchroom decided a couple of years ago that, you know what, we're tired of people popularity contest, or, that the system's rigged. We're going to give everybody a chance to earn a spot on the team, by the World 9-Ball Tour and by the qualifying points, etc. So even if Jeremy said, you know what, captain again next year, even if he says, you know what, Shane's not the best person for this team, I have someone else in mind, Shane is going to be an automatic qualifier, and there's nothing you can do about it, because there's no other Americans that are going to be able to afford to go to all of these pool tournaments. He's going to do. So he's going to win on points. He's going to be on the team, and the captains have no recourse. They have no way to say, you know what, I don't necessarily want Shane on the team. I want to try something different. And so when you look at it from a preparation standpoint, you and I were there, and I even commented to you in the hotel that night. I said, it just felt different when Shane got there, right? He was practicing on his own table. He arrived after everyone else. The other players were all playing Scotch doubles, and Jeremy was orchestrating it. Jeremy was having a lot to say, and Shane was over. And even when we got to Fort Worth Billiards that night, same thing. Federer and Wolford, I think, were playing Sky and Tyler, or vice versa. And Shane's over there breaking on the other table, running out, doing his own thing, right? So it's almost like that whole team vibe once Shane arrived, right? I felt it from the other four. I didn't feel it with him. But Jeremy has no ability to change that. Whoever's the captain next year is going to have no ability to change that. He's going to have Shane. He's going to have Sky, and then pick two players. I think that's a flaw. It's a flaw in the system, right? And to match, like, if you look at it from Metron's perspective, they were probably tired of people saying, people are just picking who they're friends with or who they like, and we don't like anything, it's unfair. And then also to promote the tour and get people to show up to the tour events. Let's go off of points. Let's do that. Makes total sense. And we thought it would be a really good thing, unless you're in a situation like Team USA is in right now, where you have your best player, your legend, one of the best players to ever play the game, who does not play well in team events and is not good for a team event, who's going to be on the team event every single year.
Yeah, but then it completely discredits the angle of you're getting in based off of merit. So then you totally lose what you've been working towards over the last year and a half, and what you're saying. This is the direction that we're going in. Now I understand everything you're saying, and in a lot of respects, you're absolutely right. But you mentioned one big word there, and that's a legend. Shane's a legend. He is. May not be a Mosconi Cup legend, but he's a legend in a lot of other aspects when it comes to the sport. And I think with that, he's kind of earned that right of first refusal, so to speak. Lest we forget, the guy just won a world championship this year. Not in a matchroom arena, but he still won a world championship this year. So it's not where if you're an NBA player and you lose a step, right? You don't have your legs anymore. You don't have your jump shot anymore, right? Or you're getting beat on defense. Not that play defense anymore in the NBA, but or like if you're Tom Brady, right, and you go play for the Bucks, or you're Joe Montana and you go play for, who did he play for after he left the 49ers? He went to go play for Kansas City. Brett Favre when he went to the Jets, right? You have these like legends, right? Because they're Hall of Fame legendary quarterbacks, where eventually their time with that team has sailed a little bit, but it's different because Shane can't go to another team, right? USA is the only one that he can play for, and I think he's earned that right to say. Well, yeah, Shane was still. Hey, listen, see if we can. If that's what we should have done, is offered up a trade. Hey, listen, we'll take Federer and we'll give you SVB. No, but
what about a buyout clause? What about a buyout clause? What about the captain? Reserves the right.
What are you going to pay him $5,000 to stay home? No, I don't think that's. Why not? Shane still moves the needle, is what a lot of people don't understand that are having that argument. People tune in to watch Shane.
You mean for viewers?
Here's an example. You can have Shane on a Predator event, Mr. Q-Tech player, and he's still going to be on the TV table 9 times out of 10. So it doesn't matter in what atmosphere he moves the needle. Even those guys at Predator and their team realize that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just think it's a tough position for whoever's the captain. It's also a tough position for Shane, because you see how every player on Team USA defers to Shane, Scotch match, or really for anything. And I think Shane's that type of player that he's gonna play his best when he gets to his quiet place and he can focus on what he needs to do, right? And it's almost like when there's a lot of wavelengths coming in and he's helping players figure out where to be and do things, it's almost like it detracts from his game and takes him out of his rhythm. Whereas you have other players who are more social, other players who kind of, would kind of, Team Europe, for instance, it looks like they thrive in that environment of communicating. David and Francisco are the best example, right? But it's almost like for Shane, it's probably draining. It's like the whole introvert extrovert thing. My wife is an extrovert. I'm an introvert. That means when we go to a party, I start with a certain amount of, let's say, points. And for me, it just starts drawing points. Her, the more people she meets and talks to, it's like the more it builds her up and gives her more energy. It drains my energy. And I almost get that same feeling out of Shane in the team environment, where he's more getting drained rather than thriving. But when he's in an individual environment and he can really focus and do his thing.
The truth is, Shane's on the back end of his career anyway. If you talk to Shane personally, how much that stays on the forefront of his mind. Appreciate the guy, why you got him, because eventually there's going to come a time where he's not going to be available to be picked, and you're going to wonder, damn, man, could he come out here and give us a hand, and come out of the locker room and put on a jersey and still go and kick some ass. And I think he still has the ability to do so, or he will, even when he decides to hang it up, so to speak. But in the meantime, I don't feel like, having an honest conversation with the guy and holding him accountable is necessarily a bad thing. Put the ball in his court.
Yeah. Like some of the comments in here, it's interesting. It's almost like they didn't see his body language after day one. Right? Like everybody saw it. Panoza was talking about it on the show today. They talked about it on Cue It Up. When he missed those 2 balls early on, it's like everything changed, not just for him, but for the whole team. And some players in the United States, absolutely, he's number one. If you need someone to win a singles match, and you got to stake somebody, you're going to stake Shane. Okay, but in a team event, it's just not the right environment for him, and that's all I'm saying.
No, the the solution isn't going to be to buy him out. The solution isn't going to be to not invite him, or him not to get there earned on points, because I think he's going to do all those things, whether you like it or not. And some fans, if they feel that way, are just going to have to accept it, because listen, the guy transcends whatever region you're in. He's got fans in China, he's got fans in Asia, Philippines. He's got fans in the UK. He's got fans in anywhere. You name the place, anywhere where they're putting on a pool tournament and you see SVB's name, he's got fans there. People will show up, and and it's not like he ain't got skills. I get it. He doesn't necessarily gel well for whatever reason in that environment, because he is an introvert, and there is all eyes on it, and it's very much a show, and you have to play a part, and you have to kind of like, do all the bells and whistles, and that's not his alley or his forte or how he likes to conduct things. He really isn't like that. I remember when we were in Everett, right? A few days prior, we went to Jason's lake house, and I brought up the Federer thing because Federer had just come off of beating Tony, has that post-game interview where he called out Shane, and I talked to him one of the first nights we were there, and I said, hey, listen, this is just, eventually in the next couple of days, we're going to have to get to this, and, he knew, but he was also very much like, and he told me point blank, he said, I'm not about that kind of way of, I don't go about that, in my business, it's not me. And I get it, but that kind of stuff does put asses in the seats, all the outside the table things do put people to show up. And for the sake of that Federer match, that back and forth drama between them will certainly get people wanting to tune in even more for it, because pool does need some more flavor and personality to it, but Shane, you're lucky you get Shane going and taking photos and pictures and smiling, and he does his role in that regard, but it's hard to get him to do things that he don't want to do. And the other side of it is, listen, the guy ain't getting any younger. He's getting more stubborn as he gets older, and he does what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. And, Lord knows we've all been there, Joe. If you don't want to do something, you don't want to do it.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't really surprised about how things played out in the preparation stage, but I was hopeful, right? I was hopeful that, it's
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because so that way fans at home get the full picture. And you're right, because Shane was, for a lot of the times, he was out there by himself while teams were doing other things, whether drills or even Scotch doubles. Eventually, he did play a Scotch doubles. I think it was him and Tyler versus, was it Wolford and Federer? I think that we live streamed before, out there at Sticks and Stones. But was Shane working out there the entire time while everybody else was working?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was. There's no doubt about it. If you put Shane Van Boening, it's kind of like Dennis or Colo. You put them in a pool room, they're going to be hitting balls, right? They're going to be practicing. They're going to be, honing their craft.
Shane's another guy, notorious,
but
great player, but was a terrible team player.
Yeah, it was kind of like, okay, so I look at, obviously not through the longevity of their careers, right? But I kind of put Fedor Gorst at the same level right now as Shane in terms of current ability, right? I look at them and I think, hey, they're probably go back and forth. They're pretty even. But it was not even in how when Jeremy would talk, it was Fedor was part of that team and Shane was the superstar. That's just how it played out in the preparation or how it appeared to me. And I was hopeful it wouldn't be that way. It's kind of like if Team USA in basketball, the dream team, when Michael Jordan was on it, you would hope that Michael Jordan would buy in to whatever coach there was and the philosophy and be a team player, but he probably didn't. He was the best player of everything and was like, I'm
okay,
not
but
coming.
let's talk about the dream team because you ain't treating Karl Malone like you're treating Jordan.
What
Are
do you
you?
mean?
Bro, if you're a coach, you treating them the same way? You think
Yeah.
that coach treated them the same way?
I think
Jordan and like Karl Malone and Clyde, and I don't think
Yeah, why
so.
not? Well,
Because it's Jordan. That's why.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's
I
still
just
Jordan.
think. Look, I'm gonna make a prediction. We know we're gonna see Shane in a number of other Moscone Cups moving forward. I do not think Team USA is going to win one with Shane in the lineup. And in fact, when he's not in the lineup at some point in the future, 5 years, 6 years from now, or whatever, even replaced by a weaker player, I think we have a better shot.
I mean, we've been doing this show how long?
At
2
least
years?
2.5 years, I think.
2 years. That might have
2 years.
been it finally after 2.5 years, you finally had a hot take. Because you're Mr. Keep the peace. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to look. I can't say that I disagree with you, but I don't think that Shane is necessarily the X factor in that because from a talent level, he's right there with those Europeans. He is.
Yeah.
He's probably he's the highest one. I mean, Federer aside, he's the highest one and most accomplished one along with those Europeans. And if you ask them, they respect them, but those Europeans also know how much that Shane can dictate the way that ship sails, and a lot of times it's not in the best way. It's not. But
Well,
I think it's a
you had the
little.
preparation leading up to it. You had the mistakes on the pool table, which you're gonna have. If Shane misses that 7 ball, misses that 9 ball, and bounces right back, and he's like, "Guys, it's okay. We got this. I got it. We're gonna turn this around. Don't worry. I got this." He's never gonna do that.
Oh, it's a whole.
It's not,
Well, yeah, but see, even just hearing that
not
gets
that
my ass fired up. Because if you were, you'd be like, let's do it. You dap him up and you say,
right.
let's go. Right?
Hey, if we were going to a pool
No, and
war,
he's
a pocket billiards war, I would follow Shane Van Boening through, into battle if he led the team, right? If he said, "Guys, I'm going to do," and I'm probably being too hard on him. Maybe there were some things said. Maybe he was
no. Listen,
showing leadership.
don't
I
go
don't
out of
know.
your way. Don't go out of your way to back off of it now. I think all is fair. It's sport. All of it's fair. Look, we talked with every single player before they left there, right? We asked Federer, about being a leader on the team. Who was a leader on the team, and what did he say? I don't think this team needs a leader. None of us are
Yeah.
leaders. The team needed a fucking leader. It's as
Yeah.
clear as day that everybody saw it because they needed someone to not just help with the morale, but more importantly, check Shane from bringing down that ship because he did. And it was something that just affected everyone from the very beginning in not so positive way.
Yeah. Well, there's always next year, Molina Mike. But I would love look. I can't think of a comparison. I guess it's the same in golf, but I'm not sure. But if you and I were creating a team right now, if we were creating like a 5v5 basketball team, and we were going to try to build the best team to broadcaster's team. We would be able to choose our team. And that's the point I was trying to make from the beginning, is that let's say Shane's not the problem. Let's say you decide Federer's the problem. Well, he's going to qualify on points too.
Now you're just going after everybody today, huh?
You know what I mean?
Jeremy, Federer, Shane.
We put all of this on the coach's shoulder, and we're like, Jeremy made these mistakes. Jeremy made these mistakes. Guess what? The players didn't make shots when they needed to make shots. And these are players that he did not select, right? Shane. He didn't select Skyler. He didn't select Federer, right? He selected Tyler and Shane Wolford. I'm just saying, He didn't pick it. It's not his team. It's a team that 3/5 of it were given to him, and then he picked the last two. Moving forward, that we at least need to acknowledge. You see my point?
What? I mean, I do, but I'm just having a hard time wrapping my head around it. Let me ask you this question: would those three players, let's say that Wolford, Tyler, and whoever else got in on points, would Sky, Federer, and Shane be picked as wild cards?
If you're asking me,
Joey, I'm asking.
You want me to be the captain? So you're going to tell me?
No. Okay, let me ask this: if you're SV, if
let's
you're
say
Jeremy
Sky
Jones,
Wolford.
If you're Jeremy Jones, are you? And if you have to pick three wild cards, are you picking Sky, Federer, and Shane?
I'm not picking Shane.
Well, that's where maybe you can say you got. That's where maybe people would say now that you got more guts than anybody else in the pool world, because that's a very controversial decision and stance to take, and that's something that it's going to be so hard to fade, because that's going to be the entire talk. And if you get if let's say you don't pick Shane and you lose 11-3, then you're just as
if I'm coached to pick one player to play Josh Filler for a race to 50, I'll pick Shane. But if I'm the coach to pick a team that's going to go out and do battle together, I'm not picking him. That's just the way I feel about it. And that's what
I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would get there yet. I would rather.
So
I'd rather have
more years of this do you want to see?
The truth is, you ain't going to get very many more years, whether you like it or not. I'd say the over/under is probably I'd say the over/under is probably at 5. Probably at 5.
I'll take the over because we see it even from the fans. We see it, right? Every year, you see like it's time for a wild card pick, and people are dredging up names that haven't really been relevant in pool for 8-10 years, saying, "Oh, we need, no disrespect, but we need Rodney Morris on the team." Or we need Dennis Hatch on the team. The guy's, Dennis has been working, selling cars. You know what I mean? Like, they're always kind of finding these older, players to get on the team. So there's always going to be available that the captain has to take Shane, or, he's got to be a part of the team. And it's not conducive to winning, in my opinion.
Let me ask you about some of these guys that you mentioned. Some of these, because Mike Siegel's all figured out how to use Facebook all of a sudden.
That's the crazy thing. All of the people
you got Dennis Hatch out there saying, "I respect the captain, but oh, by the way, I want to put my name in consideration." Let me get your take on all that, because I know what mine is, and I don't think I'm going to make a lot of people so happy. But I want to know what your take is.
Well, my take is that I think there's a lot of frustration with former top players.
Do you think frustrated, or do you think that they're just looking at it as an opportunity to get a piece of the pie?
No, I mean, to 20 grand, I think they're looking at it as an opportunity. I mean, you're talking about people now who have jobs now, like real lives. So when you're a pool player, they do anything for 20 grand. But now I think they're looking at it from, like, Dennis Hatch, for example. He's got a lot of pride, and he's looking at what's happening to Team USA. I mean, I'll tell you what, when he played for Team USA, he didn't always like tear it up and play great, but you knew he was giving it 100% and he was in it for the team, right? You knew that when Hatch was playing. He wore it on his sleeve. He was like our Shaw in a way. But so I think he looks at this, and we all feel it. As fans of the US, we all feel it. We're all hurting from this. And I think he thinks that he can get the team inspired and motivated to win. I think it's coming from a good place. Siegel, the best comment was that comment where the guy was like, I don't know how talking about yourself while you inhale and exhale is going to help Team USA.
I didn't say that. That's pretty
hilarious.
funny, though. That's pretty funny. Here's the deal. I don't like guys just inserting themselves into a conversation just because of what they did 15 years ago. It's a different game now. And if you want to be honest with the way, listen, they're also part of that generation that got on ESPN and got their asses off ESPN along with that. For whatever reason, decisions, whoever was at the helm, whatever, right? You were on that shit. And I mean that with as much due respect as I possibly can. I get it. There's history there. And maybe a guy like Catch, as fiery as he was, could offer something in that aspect. But I don't think that doesn't, for me, get you to success the Mosconi Cup. I think it's good to be in the stands and to be what Billy was to some extent last year, in the stands, getting them fired up and high fives. Is that going to get them more discipline? Is that going to get them training better? Do they have any history of training elite level pool players to up their game that I'm missing here? Because if you don't, I don't think that you're the answer to it. And I think it's very I think it's very I think you got a lot of ego if you think that it will translate, because I don't think that's the case, Joe. I'm not
face it.
I'm not on in that camp of it.
Let's
and I think
face
it's low hang I think it's low hanging fruit because they see the Americans getting beaten and they say, "Oh, I could do a better job." Really? Could you? What evidence do you have that shows that you could do a better job? Because you could just as well go to the US Open. You can start putting yourself a part of that group and in that conversation instead of just campaigning on Facebook, right? I said this on a post the other day. One of the things I love about Scott, right? I've enjoyed his commentary for years playing one pocket. Scott can be rough around the edges at times, but a great commentator, But Scott got that opportunity by taking his ass over to the US Open, playing in a 9-ball tournament, getting in front of those people, not by taking to Facebook and saying, "Oh, I got a lot of history in the game. I should be a part of it now." Give me a fucking break here. Okay?
Yeah.
Scott did it on his own merit, on his own dime, and then he got an opportunity and made the best of it. And now the guy just finished commentating, did a great job commentating a Moscone Cup, But he did that with his own effort, not because he rested on what he did maybe 15 years ago. And Scott was even more of odds on the outside because he was more of a one pocket player than a rotation player and still got there. These great American legendary 9-ball players. Give me a break.
The other day when I brought up Scott, you said, "Oh yeah, that's what we need, a one pocket player to coach Team USA." And you said that, and you said it exactly like that. But
I did.
I think there's a lot of merit to having Scott coach the team. One, we talked about one of the biggest challenges is to get Shane to buy into being part of the team and not just the superstar. Scott and Shane are tight. They've gone fishing together. They talk often. Scott texts him during matches. We know about the incident with the Chanksa midway through, and Shane credited some of his play, based on that conversation. There's a friendship there, and I believe there's mutual respect there. And so now that Scott's in the Matchroom fold, that's a possibility. It could be Scott.
I think it's a possibility, and I think he could be a value add to a group, but I don't think he can be at the helm. I think there's a very big difference. If you, I don't, just because he's a good friend to have that'll keep it real with you and keep you honest, and check you when you need to be checked. How that translate into transforming 5 guys into 9-ball players and get them to play world-class 9-ball in that stage, I don't see how you get there. just because he can have an honest conversation with you. You
I
know what
think
I would do if I was a captain and Shane was fucking up? You know what I would do? Hey, don't make me call Scott, because that's what and I'll hand him over the phone. And Scott would be good for that, but I don't know how that gets there as far as training players
all
to
right.
get better to play 9-ball on that
Okay.
stage.
Let's talk about training, because you're making a big deal out of this training and how is Dennis Hatch going to train better than Jeremy Jones? There's no training, Mike. There's no training. They get a week before the Moscone Cup. The calendar is too busy. There's no time for these camps like Johan used to put them through. So it's not even like you have to train these players, because you don't even have time to do that anyway. And you know what? It was cool seeing Jeremy talking to them and explaining things when they miss shots about how they're striking the balls and stuff. And he's a genius when it comes to that stuff. But that's like cramming for the final. That's like you didn't study all semester long and you have the final exam. It's like you're staying up till 4:00 in the morning trying to get ready for it. One of the hardest exams you've ever taken. That's where we're at. But if you look at it from this perspective, all 5 of those Americans could have played a hell of a lot better in that event. I don't think we're sitting here saying that any of them played to the no. Okay, all 5 of them could have played better. And they all have it inside to play better, right? So you need that person that's going to bring them together as a team so they trust each other, rely on each other, and have confidence and can get out there and be relaxed as they're capable of playing. You're not going to turn Tyler Steyer into an 825 player in a week's worth of training. He's a great player. But what is he, 770? I don't know. You're not going to raise his Fargo by 50
So
points before the
what should
event.
it just be? You're just going to go out
Josh,
there and just have a team bonding?
I'm not sure. But I think at this point, if Jeremy is not named captain again, and even if he is, I think the focus needs to be on building that team concept, the trust,
Tyler said it as much, whenever we talked to him. He said, it's kind of hard because you go all year kind of having this yin and yang feeling when you're out competing, because on one hand, you want to make ground, on the other hand, and then on the other side, you don't want your buddy being left behind. And then you spend all year basically competing against the other guy, only to have to train, only to have to be teammates with them by the end of it. And I think to some extent, some of these guys are personal friends. A lot of them do, hang out with each other. Tyler and Shane just came off of a really long stretch where they were playing pool together and, road tripping, eating meals, all that good stuff. I think him and Sky got good rapport. Sky and Wolford have good rapport and chemistry with one another. Sky and Jeremy have a really good relationship. So there's angles there. And Federer being Federer, I mean, he's always going to be the new guy in, because that's just the way it is, right? But I don't think that you can have one without the other. I just don't,
What do you mean?
And I get it.
You're talking about the training?
Well, like, if let's say that the training, the table time and the dedication to the drills and however else they got prepared for this event, right? If that went down, but then there were more bonding aspects to it, would you feel more confident going into it? Because I don't think I would. Personally.
You never know, Mike. Sometimes you never know.
You can only go up. You can only go up. But
I know you play competitive sports. I play competitive sports. There's just times where you go into it and you're ultra prepared. And when you're under the pressure of the situation, there's something you don't perform. And then there's other times where you go into a situation, and this has happened to me in pool too, where I haven't prepared as much for a tournament, but I go in with the right mindset. I go in more relaxed, and I play some of my best pool. Right. And so
look, you know what? It could have been as crazy as this, Joe. Maybe they just didn't have their best week.
Yeah. Totally. They are definitely not the team they showed us. That's for sure. Right. We can agree on that.
Or maybe they are. Maybe they'll learn from it. And then if the same 5 guys go out there, maybe they can go and shock them and give them a little bit more heat, because I don't think the Europeans would have played the same way had they not done the steamrolling.
Look, it's like when you play in a tournament and somebody doesn't know you and you know them and you know they're a good player, you better fire at them. you better give them a reason to be concerned about you, right? US didn't give Europe a reason to be concerned about us in this event, right? Going through the first couple days, I don't think they ever felt threatened. And when you
No,
feel
they knew they had
threatened
it from the jump, from the very beginning.
when you feel threatened as a pool player, it changes everything, right? You can go out there, and if you're not threatened, you're loosey goosey. You feel great. All the rolls are going your way, and I'll get back to the table, no worries. But when you're
Just
threatened,
spirals, Joe. It
when
spirals.
you're threatened, now all of a sudden things tighten up just that little bit, and it
There we go.
turns everything around. Which is why on day 2, I was like, if the U.S. can steal a couple of these matches, like the whole Federer stretch, I thought we could have got back into it, but it wasn't
Well,
meant
look,
to be. And
I think
there's a
we
lot of
all
questions about that Federer decision to have him play those 3 matches on day 2.
look. There are plenty of lineup discussions that are going to be had, and we're going to have them. We're going to have them. We're going to be talking about the lineups in particular, along with a variety of other things. But there was definitely some missed opportunities, I guess, blunders,
Can we talk
kind of
about
scratching your head moments.
the triangle rack and like why
Yeah,
is that a thing?
before we do, big shout out to all of our sponsors, Franco Custom Cues, all of our Patreon supporters down there, Mob Productions, Town, Salado, Pulling Around Show, Mariposa Cues, Jamison Daniels, Moonlight and Billiards. Also, shout out to Fort Worth Billiards, Albert Trujillo out there. Check out billiardsuperstore.com for all your supply needs. Go ahead, Joe.
Good
Got
job, Mike. I
got to
like how
pay the
you got
bill.
that in there.
Got to pay
Can
the
we
bills a
talk?
little bit.
Okay, can we talk about the inconsistency of the racking and why it's necessary to use a triangle rack? I just need to know. Now that we have the break box, now that we have 9 on a spot, now that we have the 4-inch pockets, are we watching John Lehman rolling balls up there and racking? And I love John Lehman, okay, but I'm pretty sure he's older than me, and I can't see the
Do you
gaps in the
know?
balls.
Do you know the reputation John has amongst pool players?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Wing ball John? Where are you going with this?
And it's with a bit of sarcasm, you know.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's not just John. It's a human being. Like,
I
you have a system where you don't
don't know, Joe.
move.
I don't.
I know you and I always debate this.
Right, and here's the deal: is because there's human element in every sport, right? You got a strike zone, right? What happens if you watch baseball, Joe? Right, you got the strike zone, and every time there's a close call, you know what they do when you're watching it on television? They pan over to this computer, generated thing that shows you the strike zone, and it shows how the ball is coming in, at what angle, and whether or not it crossed the line of being in or being out. You know what happens when I'm watching ESPN, right? I can bring up the ESPN app and I can follow the game cast, and it shows me whether a ball was in the strike zone or out of the strike zone, whether it was called a strike or not a strike. My point being is that there's human element to sports, right? Offsides, holding calls in the NFL, pass interference calls that were missed, right? There's human elements in everything. And in pool, this is one of them, right? In pool, we have the rack and we have a triangle rack. And I don't want guys to have that break dialed in, because then I feel like it'll get even more boring, like the old rotation used to be, that where I wanted to just stick a fork in my eye because it was tough to watch. And that's no fun. I love the randomness of it. It's unfortunate sometimes it favors one versus the other, but that's it's part of sports.
Well, it doesn't have to be in this case, right? In pool, it does not. You do not need a human element for racking balls anymore, especially with the format that they've come up with for the break. Now that this break, you have a break box, you have these tight pockets. With a template, it does not get boring. The layouts are still random. It's just you don't get those really bad racks that are actually bad racks that a human being made, that is not necessary anymore if you use a template. Is with that, and why? Like, do you think Matchroom feels that having a human being roll balls into a rack and set the rack is like part of the experience for the viewer?
No, I think that they're going to get players who are going to get it figured out, and they're going to start controlling more than ever, and it'll get back to being boring.
Well,
That's what I think.
that's not what we've seen on the World Nine Ball Tour. We've
In the
been
World
watching
Nine Ball
events,
Tour, they use templates only for efficiency purposes when it comes to tournaments.
right? But when we watch those matches where they're using templates, it's great. It's great. Nobody's got it locked in and figured out where they're making a ball in the side and they're straight in on the two every time, right? In fact, with the format, a lot of times the cue ball comes hold on.
You just saw Koping Chung go and break and run how many racks and Federer at
One
the U.S.
match
Open.
all year.
This is
One weird match.
this is what pool players do every
He
fucking
played the
time
match of
something
his
weird
life.
happens. Because we had one tournament, I think it was the World Pool Masters, where you had like 3 or 4 golden breaks. All the break box is flawed. Oh, here we go. This is just the most awful thing that's ever happened in pool is the break box. Give me a break.
I'm telling you,
Give me
Mike.
a break.
Look, the here's what I love about this break box and the 9 on the spot, because the way the players track the cue ball to the side rail and back through the middle of the rack, many times it hits the bottom of the 9 ball and the cue ball goes down to the bottom to the foot rail. And the beauty of that is it always leads to a difficult decision coming up table toward the 2 ball or the 1 ball if they made a different ball. And almost always you have a player who's faced with a very difficult opening shot. Do I play safe? Do I push? What do I do? There's so many more decisions that come into play now. They figured out this breaking situation. So let's take the human element out of it so we don't have these slug racks at key moments in matches. I know when I'm hitting a home run on a point because you just sit there and don't say a word.
No,
It's like
I can't.
winning.
No, hashtag boring. Same conversation that we've had. I like the triangle rack personally. Look, it's the same reason why I'll call those predator racks awful, and they are. They're terrible. But the alternative is I don't want to see template 10 ball. You know why? Because that is so fucking boring to watch.
We're talking about
It pains it pains my soul, but it's the same principle though. Because
No,
when
it
you
isn't.
have because part of the randomness that you get with having a triangle rack is different than the boring, consistent type spreads you're gonna get with templates. We've seen it time after time after time with templates
I
and
agree with
rotation.
you, 10 ball. I agree with you, 10 ball. I agree with you, 1 on the spot or breaking from the sides. I don't agree with you with the matchroom break box, breaking with the 9 on the spot. It's far too random, even with the template. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful game. And so you're just introducing the opportunity for slugs, and I hate it. I hate it. Like, look at those breaks Sky had. I forget what match it was, but it was a pretty important match. And I kind of felt like, hey, Sky's getting in the groove now. And then he get up the break, dry break. Get up the break, dry break. And it's
Could it just be just a crazy thought, but could it just be the Europeans broke the balls better than the Americans?
yeah, sure.
Bueller. Huh? Could it just be that we were outclassed in that category as well?
Okay.
I mean, I get it. I don't want to just harp on excuses and you got outplayed, you got outbroke.
Look at Pool Stat Guy says. Pool
What'd he
Stat
say?
Guy, Michael Salmon. He says there were 30 break and runs last year with a template, 2 wins on the break. This year, there with the wooden rack, 25 break and runs, 3 on the break. Very simple. I think that supports my point. Or maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Does it? Hold on. Let me analyze this for a minute. So there was
I think it does.
there was more break and runs last year with the template. 2 wins on the break this year.
5 more.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean 5
It's
more and race the 5.
it shows is pretty
Yeah,
consistent, but I'll put it to you this way: those bad racks this year were much worse than the
yeah.
ones where they were dry breaks last year.
See, look, I love these beautiful racks that we get where there's safety play and there's you
Metrum
know
template, you get that.
I don't care. I mean, give me a triangle rack. Give me a triangle rack every day when it comes to rotation. I like the human element.
All
I
right,
just I can appreciate it, and you know, but give me a yeah. I don't
moving
know.
on, moving on, moving on. I heard Pinozzo say today how it got like so old watching Team Europe dance and Shaw after every shot, like calling to the
Mike's
crowd.
like here's the deal. Mike's
How do
Mike's
you feel
old,
about
man. I love Mike, but Mike, thank God he's asleep right now. But Mike's a little old, you know. So Mike don't like a lot of flavor. Mike still wishes, Mike still wishes Siegel was. Mike just had dinner with Siegel at the International, So Mike's just of a different generation. I know there's a lot of fans who say that they may not like it and they may not like the antics. And look, it's a TV show at the end of the day, you know. And I don't want to see boring pool players. I just don't. I don't want to. I get that every year, every tournament where guys are just sitting there and it's very proper and it's very boring and their position plays perfect and there's little to no emotion and they just sit there and it's you know. I get that all the time, Joe.
I
I don't
feel
want to
like
get.
there's a
I
fine
want it different.
I feel like there's a fine line between being a showman and showing someone up, right? And one thing I'll give you a lot of credit on this year is that even though they were doing the showman thing, I
Whoops.
kind of
Hold
felt
on,
like
Joe. If you can hear me, I cannot hear you. So I'm gonna refresh. I'm gonna turn off this thing, and then I'm gonna refresh, and you just
you
man
can't.
the ship here for a little bit. All right,
Uh-oh.
just hang tight.
Okay. Can they hear me? Oh gosh, she didn't even turn the graphic off. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I kind of Europe took their foot off the gas a little in like the disrespect side. I felt like once they got up to that big lead, it was kind of like they were a little merciful, where they could rubbed it in a little harder on Team USA, and I kind of felt like they took their foot off the gas a little on that, which I appreciated. But I think there's a fine line between being a
Tight.
showman. Are we working? Oh, where'd he go? Fine line between being a showman and showing up the other team. Just curious to get your thoughts in the chat while we wait for Melina to come back. Did you guys think Team Europe, or do you agree with Melina that being a hot dog is appropriate in this tournament?
What did I miss? What are you
You hear
talking
me?
about being? What are you? Hold on, I'm just coming back in here. Okay, ask that question again because all I heard was hot dog.
Well, between being a showman and showing up the other team or showing off, and Jason really walks that line and goes over it sometimes. But I said I felt like that Europe kind of took their foot off the gas on that a little bit, almost like they were merciful when they saw the U.S. was down by so much. But I was just asking people, like, did they feel like Team Europe was a little too much with that this year or not? And curious to get your thoughts too, Mike.
It's fair play. It's fair play, and it always will be. If you want to shut them up, go shut them up by whooping their ass. Go shut them up by beating them. Go shut them up by beating them 5-0. Shut them up by being up 7-1. Shut them up by having a golden break. Shut them up in Vegas whenever they come over there and put a stomping on them like they put a stomping on you. You know, I love that part of it. Uh, at the same time, I'm not on the receiving end of it per se, right? Because I'm not one of the players, and I might, and if it, and maybe I might pull them off to the side if it was me, and I might, have a one-on-one chat with them. But when it comes to sports, look, you got the bat flip and other sports, right? You got touchdown celebrations in it, right? Pool does not need less of this extravagant behavior. We need more of it. We need more of it because it's boring otherwise. Pool is boring otherwise. If you just have the table and the prim and proper Europeans and
I
no,
see it.
no. No.
I can agree with that. In the arena at the Moscone Cup, and you and I have both been there, and we know how electric that is. You need it there, right? It looked like at Hanoi, same thing, right? That's the environment for it. If you're at like, another pool room and it's kind of quiet or something, and you're playing in a tournament, like I'd want to throw my pool cue at somebody like a javelin through their temple if they were doing the kind of stuff that Jason Shaw does when they're beating me.
It's stuff like that is what's going to create what could be one of the best rivalries that the sport has had since like Dennis or Shane, and Federer and Shaw, because now what happened in Hanoi, that's always going to be the talking point when these two guys match up. You're always going to have that conversation. And Federer has made no bones about it that
matchup.
There's a lot of matches we didn't see. We didn't even get to see our best Scotch doubles partner.
Yeah. How disappointing is that, though?
And the irony is, from it looks like Shaw playing with the Viking cube, is that those two guys, of all people, are looking like they're going to be teammates playing for the same brand pretty soon. So how ironic and strong is that after it's all said and done? But no, it is. But it's funny. I think that there's this younger generation of players get it. These guys who are very much aware of the optics and how pool is received, I think they get it. Even Federer for being very much like, he'll say, okay, I'm taking the, what do you say during an interview? Taking the high road, being more classy. Federer's got a little bit of shit talking in him too, and I think he knows, huh? Well, he knows when to use it.
Different delivery.
Yeah, sure, but listen, I don't like this notion that like you owe them anything better or you owe them less or you owe them this. No, you don't owe them a fucking thing. They're out there to put on a show. The show was great. It's a talking point about it. More people are showing up. Part of why we love the Moscone Cup is because of the environment, the fans, the rowdiness, the loudness, the cheering. It's unlike any other tournament that we have. We have 12 months of these stale tournaments, right, with like boring fans, and you got.
I get it.
If you want something with less of that, go to the International Open. There's plenty of guys who are just.
Jason gets straight in on the 9-ball. If Jason gets straight in on a 9-ball and he's about to make it, I'm good with like this. Yeah, okay, all this stuff. But like the 7-ball, the 8-ball, 9-ball.
Okay, so I'll invite Jason on the show, and we'll tell him, listen, the 9-ball is on the table. The 7, the 6, 7, and 8 are.
I'll tell him.
I
ain't scared. But look, the last thing, Mike, we've already gone an hour, but I want to address this because, frustrating as it is to watch Team Europe really demolish Team USA the way they did, it's, as a pool player and as a fan of this sport, it was an amazing experience to watch the quality of play, particularly from Jason and from Josh Filler. Josh Filler, I think that might have been the best performance I've ever seen in a Moscone Cup. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
No, I said it earlier today whenever me and Mike were talking just how much in awe that I was in awe last year whenever I saw him play. I think about the first time I went to like a big matchroom tournament, and it was the U.S. Open. And Josh, I think at that time, was already a world champion, and he faces Wu Jiaqing in the final. And it was incredible. Wu should have won that because Wu was coming for Josh. And, if it wasn't for that funky little foul that he took, I think at like 10-12 or something. But anyway, when I think back on it, I just realized how insane that dude has been playing for so long. Like the consistency level of like not even just good pool. I mean like dominating pool. And that guy has just been the epitome of what it takes to deliver under pressure. No matter who you're a fan of, whatever team you're rooting for, if you just love pool, you can't help but just be just super in awe of that dude and what he's able to do.
Totally. And pool stat guy says the stats show Alvin played the best. I don't care what the stats say. This is an example
the old eye test, Joe. It's the old eye test.
Josh was the best. I don't care what the stats say. I mean, that guy played outside of this world. And it's something that when you're watching it with someone who doesn't really play pool, like my family, my kids, my wife, to explain to them, just take the time to explain to them the difficulty in some of these shots that he's executing and making look like a 3-foot hanger. He's shooting a 8-foot shot. Gotta hit it with high spin,
Right.
and it's like he just makes it center of the pocket like it is absolutely nothing. And I'm like, and amateur, my kids, my wife, they're like, it didn't look that hard. But yeah, you try to shoot that
He
shot
makes it.
in that
He
moment.
makes it look. He makes it look real easy. And that's the
Yeah,
part that's crazy because we can appreciate and understand the level of difficulty with it and just how he's able to do it time after time after time. He delivers, and the range of what he's able to do is so wide, whether it's
yeah.
defense, tactical play, return safeties. It doesn't matter. He does them all. Banks the ball well. I mean, just you name it. I really wish, to be honest with you, like more than ever, I would really love to see that guy play more one pocket because I think he's someone that could really light a fire in that game and revive it in a lot of aspects. Just because he does everything so well and he runs balls from anywhere. So
I tell you what I'd like to
um,
see. What I would like to see, because I want to see the last thing I would want to see is for Filler to go with the WPA, not play in the Moscone next year. Team USA brings a similar team, shows up, plays great, beats Europe, and they're like, well, you wouldn't have done that if Josh Filler was here. I want to see
you know
Josh
that'll be
Filler.
the excuse, right?
Absolutely. I want to see Josh Filler in this event every single year. And if you're a fan of pool, even if you're a fan of the United States, you should want to see that because it's something to see. It's a spectacle. It's unbelievable. And I want to see him continue to play in the Moscone Cup. And if we don't see that, it's going to be like a robbery. We're going to get robbed of seeing one of the greatest players ever in his prime on that stage. And it's just not cool.
Who are you sending out there next year?
For Europe?
I think I asked you this the other day. Nah,
For Europe?
Europe's too much of a Europe. The European team is gambling because I think I would bet money that next year Europe's going to have 2 rookies. Just
Yeah,
make it off of rankings alone is what I would think.
points. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you got a lot of up and comers. You got guys that could have made it this year, like Alexa was very close, and
Mario, there are a lot of
yeah,
guys. You know, my
Max,
my
yeah,
my boy Max. But
Beaster
see,
Bosch
as much
got a good
as much
special.
as I respect a lot of those guys in their game, Victor, right? You're talking about a lot of guys who can have a lot of who can see a lot of ghosts, see a lot of shadows there, and that's just playing in tournament play. I think that even though they're great players, and they are, every single one of them are, but you throw them into that fire, you may see a completely different team, and you may see Team USA turn into vultures the way that the Europeans were.
Well,
You know,
one thing that we know is that this WPA banning player decision is going to affect the European players more than it's going to affect the United States players, right?
oh for
So
sure,
we're gonna
for sure.
we're gonna have to see the way that shakes out because you're throwing
I don't know if
names
that's a
out
good thing or
there
a
like
bad thing for the Americans, by the way.
yeah, but you're
Yeah,
throwing out
because listen,
names like Victor. The Polish players are probably not going to play on the matchroom
there's
stage
been rumors
unless
that
something
Albin's going WPA as well. Over the last few months. So there's a lot of different names that have been tossed around, and I think it'll definitely change that group. Those 5 guys that were there for the Europeans, like you can talk about the Americans and make every excuse you want, whether it's leadership or dogged a couple of balls or chemistry, whatever. Those dudes out there are something special. Those dudes are legends in their own right and have become a unit. They trust one another and it shows up out there. They got a lot of experience, each and every one of them. They've done so many things, both individually and in team events. It's incredible.
yeah,
You get so caught up as an American fan that you just forget to realize that like you just saw greatness there. Those dudes played sound. You're never going to be batting 1,000 But like those guys, man, were awesome, Joe. Jason was incredible in certain spots. David broke the balls so well in big spots. Like the pool stat guy says, Albin was the best player, but he was an afterthought of the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
And he was, and
He
it looks
prefers
like
it that
on
way.
he
Yeah.
does, but it works. It works for him, you know. Fran was a number one overall pick and was two railing most shots, you know. So it's
It's a little harsh, but yeah, it wasn't himself. That's for
hey,
sure.
listen, I like
But
Fran,
Team
man. I
USA.
like.
I don't know that I can give you my whole team now, but I told you the issue about Shane, but he's going to make it on points. You know that Sky's going to make it on points as well. Those two players are really the only locks that are going to play most or all the matchroom events, and they're going to do pretty well, right? Wolford,
Yep.
you know, a lot of people look at Wolford as the bright spot this year, and I think he did pretty well. But I think even he would admit that he missed some opportunities and can play better. I think he does deserve another shot. He showed that stage is not too bright for him. And so I think you'd have to try to find a way to get him back on the team as well. Tyler had a down year for me, for my money.
Look,
You know, uh,
I think Wolford
from
played
what we
great,
saw
but I don't think he played good enough to
from
get
Tyler,
to lock himself up in a spot. Though there's a
not
difference.
lock it, not
Wolford
lock it.
played
But I
good.
mean, I would feel okay if he qualified next year, uh, especially with the year under his belt. I see there's an interesting thing to this, Mike, where you have somebody who's a rookie this year. And then if you have the opportunity to select that player next year, I think you probably should select them, right? Because you want them to get into a pattern of playing in this event. If they're a young guy like a Shane
I
Wolford,
don't. No,
if
no.
you if he
I want a
plays
pattern
this
of earning
year
it.
and
Earn
he
it.
doesn't earn it next year and he doesn't earn it the next year and then he plays 3 years from now, you're not really getting that same experience. So I think you got to give somebody 2 years in a row to kind of see what they can do. Um, that's just my thought. Yeah. So
Look, I think that kid. I think Wolford had some very bright spots in that cup. A lot of spots where I thought, okay, this is a perfect time for you to fold because any normal player would have folded in that spot, and it would have been okay because that's what everybody expects and that's what the situation says should happen. You know, and that guy defied a lot of those expectations and thoughts, and he delivered very well. He played very well. I thought he didn't look overwhelmed by the moment for the most part in that event, and there were tons of positives to take away. But I don't think it was overwhelming enough. And part of that, why I say that, is just for lack of opportunity. Because when he was out there, if you look at it just from a percentage standpoint, I think he performed very well given the small sample size that we got to actually view him play. Does that make sense, Joe? Um, and
yes.
so and that's not, like I said, that's not his own fault. But I still feel like you know you got to go out there and still have a rock solid year in order to make it. I think you're really vying for a couple of spots on Team USA because I think 3 spots are already locked up, whether you're making it in off of points or not. Um, and every year it seems like there's somebody new coming into the mix. Like for what Wolford was last year, kind of coming on the radar, making a splash. What Lucas Werner was this year, right? What BJ may have been, what Nick was a year ago. You know, there's going to be somebody else coming. You know, could it be like a Sam Henderson type player? You know, could it be like
You know,
a Little Laz or something coming out of Texas? You know, could one of these junior players start making a name for it? Like, I don't think they're so far behind the pack where like they can't start coming in those guys' rearview mirror. You know,
I just thought of something, Mike, that could be an opportunity for success for Team USA. We talked about the issue with training, and even when we talked with Johan, he said how he would go meet with the players, spend a week with them. What if Jeremy maybe was a vice captain, but spent this year working with the potential players on the team in that capacity? We already know he does, private trainings and things like that. You know what I mean? Like, kind of start him with the players early and working with them
I
on
think
training.
you got to get some of these guys to buy in. I mean, the truth is most of them aren't known to be workhorses. You know, at this point in Shane's career, yeah, he's hitting balls, but he don't have the same work ethic like Shane Van Boening did. 10 years ago, and that's not a knock to the guy because he's still an elite talent. You know, Tyler is a workhorse. Federer is a workhorse. I don't think Sky's known to have incredible work ethic. He's got incredible talent, and now he's have more of a support system around him that kind of, make sure that he stays on the straight and narrow when it comes to practicing and things like that. But, he's not like Tyler is or like Federer is. I was surprised. And this is part of what like really took me back of our time there because I knew like they would be training. I didn't realize it was gonna be like that though, Joey. Like I didn't
Me
realize it
neither.
was that. I didn't realize it was that kind of level. And I remember talking with Federer because I've always like I know this about Federer. I've had private conversations with him. I know how, and I've heard rumors. I've heard about just how great of a talent he is and how much he works off the table and all this and that. But like I didn't realize it. Does that make sense? Like I knew, but I didn't really know. And when I talked to him, and he was like, "Yeah, when I'm getting ready for a tournament, I'm practicing 8 hours a day for those, 2 weeks or whatever right before the tournament." And I'm like, "Damn, like 8 hours, huh? That's a long
I don't
time.
think.
That's a
Listen, I don't
long."
think. Here's the thing. I don't think most people who play pool, myself included, really understand what it's like to train for 8 hours in a day. I'm not talking about going to the pool room and playing your friend a race to 9 and then finding somebody else to play. And before you know it, it's been 8 hours. I'm
Oh,
talking
they were.
about going there with a purpose and hitting balls for 8 hours. And we saw it, Mike. Yeah, I remember after like 2.5 hours, I was like, Jeremy, are you going to give them are going to fall off? And he's like, it's only been 2.5 hours. So
We got
it was,
there, I think, like 2 days in, and I remember we were there for 2.5 days with him, and um, but I was exhausted. I mean, granted, I'm 37 years old, but then I was like, I wasn't even hitting the ball. I mean, we
yeah,
were working in other aspects, but like, I wasn't even physically, I wasn't doing what they were doing.
yeah,
The repetition, over and over and over, and you're setting it back up, and you're setting it back up, and you're delivering the cue action the same way, and you're trying to get the same result, and then you're having to adjust. Then you got it was just thinking about it makes me exhausted. But they were doing it, they were putting in the work. It didn't translate out there on the stage, but it wasn't
yeah,
for lack of effort. you know
yeah.
because that I don't look, this is it gave me a whole different level of respect for those guys. And I don't
Oh,
mean just the Americans, because I'm sure the Europeans worked just as hard, and Jason said as much, that they all knew what they needed to do whenever they got there. And I would bet a ton of money that they did something real similar to it for the same amount of time. But it gave me a complete new level of respect for what they do,
yeah.
and I wish that the delivered product showed that level of effort that they put into it, because those guys work their ass off. And I don't care if they lose 11-0 or 11-3. Like, you did all you can do with the time you had afforded to you, and you put forth your best effort. There were early mornings, late nights. Even the next day after we left after we had the one night where we went to the basketball game. What happened? We didn't get out of there till whatever it was, 10 something at night. Okay,
Yeah.
guys, we're gonna be there at 10 o'clock in the morning the next morning. Back at the pool room. There wasn't any there wasn't anything soft about it, or any kind of
They
it was
trained.
disciplined in that regard. They
Yeah.
trained, yes, they trained. And I didn't expect that, Joe. I honest to God, I did not, so
No, I didn't
um
expect it like that either. I kind of figured it would be more informal. Um, but yeah,
yeah.
I was very disciplined. In fact, balls and one guy on each side of the table, and they were setting up these shots where they'd hit follow shots, stop shots, draw shots, and Jeremy would time them, and they'd have 15 minutes of the exact same shot over and over again. Then they'd do 15 minutes withdrawal and 15 minutes stop shot and 15 minutes follow. Wow, for guys at this caliber, this level of player, that's got to be so boring to do that over and over again. But no complaints. That was day one, and like I said, Shane wasn't
They're
there that
professionals.
day. Shane got
They're
there.
professionals.
Shane rolled balls out on the table and did his own thing, broke balls. So I don't want to circle back to that, but that was just my thought. But yeah, Melina, give people an idea of what to expect this week from us. I know we got a few things in the works.
All right, so I think okay, so maybe tomorrow, so maybe tomorrow we'll do a grading show. We're gonna go through each and every player. We're gonna go over the format. We're gonna go over, or not the format. Formats can be different. Show. The format will be touched, but very vaguely. Um, the players, captains, lineups, you name it. We're gonna go through and grade everything. The at-home experience versus the in-person experience with Pinozo. He's gonna give that a grade as well. So we're gonna go through it all, and it looks like Joey's, off the chain now, so we ain't got to worry about him being so buttoned up. He's gonna give his honest opinion. Finally, after a couple of years, he's keeping it real with everybody. Um, and then I think Thursday we're going to shoot for that format show with Carl Boyce. I don't know if Joey's going to be able to make it. We will see. But if not, Pinozo will be. And then I'm also looking to get Darren Appleton on that show as well. Two guys who just have a lot of history and experience. And then also bringing that European perspective, because I don't want it to come across like we're talking about format for the sake of, saving the Americans. I'm just talking it from a standpoint of, having it being too top heavy like it was this year. At least that's for me. So, on top of that, Jeremy Jones this weekend. So I don't know exactly what day. I don't know exactly what time, but as soon as I do, I will let you know. There's a couple of other people who I've reached out to as well. Justin Bergman has been one of them. I have not heard back, so I'm not going to hold my breath for that. And yeah, we'll see.
Come on, Mike.
I'll probably at some point reach out to Jason and see if he wants to come on the show. We had Josh on during the event, but I love to talk with Jason. He's always a real good sport. So, but yeah, listen, I'm glad it's over because that was an exhausting week, but it's right back to it because we're going to start having events coming up. I'm sure the schedule will be out pretty soon. So I can't wait for that to be announced. Derby will be here before you know it as well. So, yeah, so many things to look forward to over the next few weeks. Big shout out to all of our sponsors up top. We got Franco Custom Cues down below, Mob Productions, Town, Salado, Pulling Around Show, Mariposa, Jamison Daniels, and Moonlight and Billiards. Also, shout out to Alberto Trujillo at Fort Worth Billiards for being the sponsor of the show throughout the Moscone Cup coverage. Go check out billiardsuperstore.com for all your supply needs. And yeah, I don't know. In the short term, that's all that we got.
What's up? Thanks to all our Patreon supporters. If you guys want to support us on there, go to patreon.com/doggingit. Mike, we got to get some stuff up there. So that's where if you guys think I've had no filter lately, that's where we really have no filter. Okay, because it's not broadcast to the world. So check it out, guys.
Yeah, we'll make sure, and we'll be live. We'll be live a lot this week, so it's going to be a good time. I appreciate each and every one of y'all for hanging out with us tonight. Also, those who hung out with us throughout our Moscone Cup coverage. At some point, I think we had probably the highest number of views that we had on a podcast style show. I think we had over 500 a couple times. So it's cool hitting milestones like that, but we're not settling. We're going to keep on working hard. We're going to keep on pushing forward, and it's thanks to all you guys. So thanks everybody for hanging out, and we'll see you guys real soon.
Peace.